Hello and welcome to the Library of Luke Edwards. And today, guys, I'm going to be talking about Senlin Ascends. And I've got to say, I really did love it. It did in fact ascend my expectations. But honestly though, I was already excited for this book. And I mean, Alan from the Library of Alexandria, who raves this book to absolute heaven on high, and you guys should absolutely subscribe to him. I mean, he sold this book to me, and I was already really excited. But it genuinely surprised me by how good it was and how much I love this book. Josiah Bancroft has done something really special here, in my opinion. For those of you that don't know what Senlin Ascends is about, I will enlighten you. Senlin Ascends is a whimsical tale of a school headmaster on his honeymoon who is caught up in an absurdly bizarro adventure. The backdrop is the Tower of Babel, and it's this massive tower where each level, it's a new place with new cultures, a ringdom. And, as you can probably tell by the title, Senlin Ascends. Its aesthetic is a sort of gas lamp, steampunk type fantasy, but it has a very Alice in Wonderland-y feel to it. It's nothing like Alice in Wonderland, but it has that sort of strange, whimsical nature to it, where this normal person is thrown into this weird world and he has to come to terms with what is happening. And it's full of mystery, backstabbery. There's actually some gory bloodshed, believe it or not, but it's not by any means like a dark and gory book. In fact, this book was really hopeful. I felt good when I finished this. I felt good while I was reading this. It's really refreshing to have a main character, a protagonist like Senlin. He's normal, he's good, and he is so naively optimistic. He really is a really hopeful protagonist. And I feel like in the modern world, a lot of people are losing that a bit. You know, this idea of, no, we can always have faith in people. Always have faith that someone will come around the corner and be your friend and things can get better and we can dig ourselves out of the mud. And I think him as a character really embodies this hopefulness that I think is especially lost in modern fiction. I mean, obviously there are hopeful characters and hopeful stories out there, but I just think, how often do we actually see characters that are as optimistic and proactive as Senlin without being over the top, without being overly skilled, without being overly heroic? Senlin doesn't swoop in and save the day all the time. He's not over skilled. He's not a Gary Stu or whatever the term is. He's just a guy, and he's just trying, and I really love him as a character. Another thing that I want to talk about with regards to this book is the structure. To look at Bancroft's writing from a technical perspective, because I always like to dive into how it's written, the bones of it. Structurally, I think this book is amazing because it subverted my expectations in a really satisfying way, but not based on like things that were actually happening in the narrative, more just how the structure of the narrative went. Because, and I don't want to spoil that experience for anyone, so I'm going to keep this quite light by just saying, it starts off, everything feels very random. It felt very episodic. It felt like, oh, it's just another random thing happening, then another random thing happening. And a lot of the things in this book felt so inconsequential until they stopped being inconsequential. And it made me realise that the writing for the entirety of this book was so intentional. I wouldn't say any of it was random. Everything that was put into this book felt purposeful, but not at first. Things had to come together. Things had to come full circle. And I always appreciate writing that does that, because sometimes people just overload their books with stuff and some of it's unnecessary. And I think when you go through that second draft stage, maybe he even did it in outlining, I don't know how he approached this, but creating moments that didn't feel purposeful until it all came together. Well, it didn't all come together. There's still plenty of mystery leading me into the next book. But when things really come together and you go, oh, okay. Oh, that's a nice touch. Oh, I'm glad you brought that back. It's just, there's something immensely satisfying to read a book that does that. I liked all of the side characters. I really did. I thought they were all really well done. That also feeds into what I was just saying, where at first they felt like they were just random interactions, as if like they were people of little importance. And they weren't. Everyone had a purpose. the prose. For those of you that have watched my other reviews, you guys know that I like prose. I don't think I'm a prose snob, but bad prose can break a book for me, and great prose can excel a book for me. I love it if there is lyricism or intention or very distinct tone in the way a story is written. Because language is beautiful, and it can be beautiful. It can communicate emotion and feeling in ways that just having normal conversations or just experiencing things in life, you can't even fully appreciate until it's re-communicated to you through prose form. And there are so many word choices and descriptions and ways in which Bancroft describes action and emotion and character introspection. And his prose is just, I loved it. I thought it was really, really, really high bar. I mean, the detailed wording, the atmosphere, the way he sets tone, the way he creates the culture and the feeling of this world that Senlin has been dropped in. I do think it's masterful. He described gunfire as grim confetti, and just little things like that I really appreciate. I can't even think of every single great description in this book because there were so many. But it never feels flowery, it never feels over the top. It's not like reading some pretentious, romantic book where it says things like, he looked into the whirlpool of her eyes and he felt his cheeks ablaze with heat. It's nothing, it's all very, it just works. It just all fits. And it's so purposeful and witty and charming. Like, the narrative voice is exceptional. I'll give you one little excerpt, okay? The crowd was like a jelly that congealed around them. At first they could hardly move. A bald man with an enormous hemp sack humped on his shoulder and an iron collar about his neck knocked Senlin into a red-eyed woman. She repulsed him with an alcoholic laugh and then shrank back into the swamp of bodies. A cage of agitated canaries was passed over their heads, shedding foul-smelling feathers on their shoulders. The hips of a dozen black-robed women, pilgrims of some esoteric faith, rolled against them like enormous ball bearings. Unwashed children loaded with trays of scented tissue flowers, toy pinwheels and candied fruit wriggled about them, each child leashed to another by a length of rope. Other than the path of the train tracks, there were no clear roads, no cobblestones, no curbs, only the rust-red hard pan of the earth beneath them. There's so much atmosphere and emotiveness, and all the writing is like that, but it's never over the top. You never feel distant from the story or the characters. Alcoholic laugh. Do you not just completely visualize that? Someone could just say, oh, a woman laughed, but an alcoholic laugh, it just paints so much. I just love writing like that. I know prose like that isn't for everyone, but when I can have such a vivid sense of place, I just appreciate it so much more. I'm the sort of reader that really needs to be immersed. But even if you're not necessarily fussy about prose, or you don't care about beautiful or descriptive prose, this story still has a fast-paced structure to it and a tale and characters that are engaging without that. I don't think that the prose would pull you out of the story if you're not a fan of that sort of prose. It's not over the top, it's not overly flowery, it's just perfectly detailed and intentional. I love it. I can't wait to pick up the next one, seriously. Alan, thank you. Thank you for bringing this book into my life. I think this book might be the best thing I've read this year. And that's saying something, because I've read Before They Are Hanged this year, and I read Oathbringer this year. Obviously, I love both those books. I gave Before They Are Hanged massive praise. I think I enjoyed reading this book the most out of everything I've read this year. So what shall I rate it? 9.5. No, do you know what? I can't think of anything wrong with it. I have no fault in it. I'm giving it a 10. This is my first 10 out of 10. It's my first 10 out of 10 on the channel. I loved it. Please though, these are my opinions. I can see why this wouldn't work for some people. The slightly episodic storyline, the detailed prose, the character is probably hit or miss for some people. I really liked him. There's quite a bit of sexism in this world, and I know a lot of readers don't necessarily like that. I mean, it's not glorified. The cultures of the Tower aren't supposed to be great places to live, and it definitely feels like it has historical attitudes. But I think there is a lot to love in this book, and I think there is stuff that people can take away from this book no matter what sort of books you like. I think it's worth giving a go. Not everyone's going to love it as much as I do. Not everyone's going to love it as much as Alan does. But I think it's a very underrated fantasy book. 100%. It needs more traction. It needs more of an audience because Bancroft, you have created what is probably in my top 5 book series of all time. I don't know where I would place it yet because I've still got a lot of stuff to work through. I've still got some series to catch up with and finish. But mate, this book was great and I loved it. And that's all I have to say about Senlin Ascends. So please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when I've uploaded. If you want to get my crumpet merch, go to Ledwards.Books. There's a lot of silly clothes on there. It's all a bit daft. You don't have to, it's not to be taken too seriously. Please follow me on Instagram because I post stories most days. Jump in the Discord and we can discuss books and films and various other topics. There's plenty of conversations going on in my Discord and we talk to each other every day in there. So it's a nice little community. Please leave a comment. Tell me if you've read this or if you want to read this. And yeah, thanks for watching. Peace.